What's up, everyone? Welcome to Dogs Down South on a Thursday night. September 12th. It's week 3 of college football, and super excited about this week, as we are all weeks. Any weeks Georgia plays. Might not be too excited about next week because we are off. But we're super excited about this week. Happy to be on tonight. If you're watching tonight from YouTube, make sure you go and follow and like us on YouTube, and as well as Apple Podcasts 24 hours later. If you are on Instagram, go hit us up. X, Twitter, go hit us up. Facebook, Dogs Down South. And our mailbag questions tonight are coming from dogsdownsouth@gmail.com. Let me add my man Fish to the show. What's up, Fish? How are you, man?
What's up, man? What's good?
Hey, man, week 3, bro. Week 3, and maybe
It
with
seemed
some
like,
would
I was going to say, doesn't it just seem like yesterday we were like 70 days, 50 days, 45 days, and
Yeah,
now we're
man.
already in week 3?
100%, man. Like, it feels like these weeks just kind of went by.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. The cool thing is now, man, is we're, if you look at it right now, we're kind of going to be, for most teams, they're getting into the brunt of SEC play, including Georgia. Obviously, we opened up with Clemson, played Tennessee Tech last week, which was as predicted. I don't know if we got as much rest to our starters as I thought we would, but I think Kirby used some of those scenarios to just look at execution, different things. He wanted to see some things in some areas, so I don't think it was because we couldn't get him out of there early. I just think it was, Kirby using a game where we obviously paid a lot of money to Tennessee Tech to just
Yeah.
get some scenarios in place, so on and so forth. If you are joining us right now, make sure you go and follow us on YouTube. Thanks for joining. If you have any questions in the chat, please pop it in there. We want you to be as much as a part as you want to be. Fish, we're going to hop right in around the SEC. We're going to do a lot of things tonight. We're going to hop in and talk about some games from last week around the SEC, preview Georgia, Kentucky. We're going to answer some mailbag questions, not only from Dogs Down South, but also just some questions that are kind of flirting around the podcast, around the SEC, around Georgia podcasts, things of that nature in our mailbag. If you do have mailbag questions you want us to read every week, make sure and send the question. It's not a dumb question, I promise you. Dogsdownsouth@gmail.com. And then obviously we're going to pick all the SEC games and important games in week 3. So super cool show coming at you tonight. But let's hop right in, man. Fish, I got 3 scenarios from just previewing and recapping from last week. Obviously, we went early last week, so this is a bit, I guess you would per se say fresh on our mind because it's Thursday and it happened a while back. But Auburn, Cal, man. So Auburn obviously has Cal come in to Auburn, Alabama, and pulls the upset. I really, if I'm just speaking freely, like it's an upset because I don't think it's that Cal was not, I don't think you look at Cal as not a great team. I just think you look at Auburn and you thought the same thing I thought. Auburn's back, right? So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that game? You watch that game at all?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. My better half is a big Auburn fan.
Okay. What'd you think? Is
I
Cal
think
better
Peyton
this
Horn,
year, or is Auburn overrated?
I think Peyton Thorne's overrated. I don't think it's Auburn as much as it is they can't generate any kind of offense. I don't know what was going on. He just didn't seem. I mean, they scored 70 points last week, and then they can't get to 14, and that was a late touchdown that got them to 14. So pretty much it was 7 points the whole game.
Right.
Right. The defense. I mean, who knows about Cal though, for real? I mean, what do you know about Cal? Can you tell me anything about Cal other than the color of their uniforms?
I can't. I know that they were a bright yellow color, like a school bus that day.
Yeah.
They went with the school bus yellow.
Yeah. So, I mean, who knows how good they really are? It's not a team that gets a lot of publicity. We don't hear a lot about them. We don't look into them. We don't read up on them, because they're all the way out there. We're all the way over here. They don't play Georgia hardly ever, if ever. I know Marshawn Lynch went there.
Yeah.
That's about it. But I don't know.
I heard him
man.
a lot in All the Right Moves, man. Have you ever seen All the Right Moves with Tom Cruise, man?
Yeah.
When he football player?
Oh, yeah.
It's a really good movie. I heard more about Cal Polytech at that time more than more than I ever did now. But I agree with you. I
Exactly.
mean, I agree. Like who is Cal? Like who are they? We haven't heard much from them in the past, and then but you've heard a lot about Auburn. All you've heard about Auburn is
Exactly.
great recruiting class. This is
Yeah.
Peyton Thorne's year because he doesn't have touchdown. What's my boy's name? Who now plays for South Carolina?
I know who you're talking about.
Tommy. Anyways, all I'm saying is he doesn't have anybody looking over his shoulder now, and so it's Peyton
Yeah.
Thorne's time. You look at Hugh Freeze's, you look at his interviews after the game, and he just talks about how he knows who the best quarterback is in practice. He knows who's performing the best in practice. Obviously, there's not a quarterback battle going on.
Yeah.
Obviously, Hugh's calling the plays. I told somebody this with two different teams, with Florida and with Auburn, is I do, however, think that there is some complexity to Hugh's offense that I don't know if you can throw the kitchen sink at Peyton Thorne that quick in some of
Yeah.
those scenarios. I think they used that first game. And some of Cal, I mean, Cal controlled the line of scrimmage. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I was very, very blown away at how they really
Cal,
handled Auburn up front. Auburn really wasn't
Cal
able
might win the SEC. Cal might win the ACC this year. Who knows? And then that loss doesn't look that bad because they lost to a playoff team.
Yeah,
I mean,
could be right. I mean, FSU is we haven't been on since FSU, kind of lost its glamour in 2 games, man. Like I'm actually
yeah.
rooting for them to get a win this week. I mean, they should, but I'm rooting for them to
You would
get a
think
win,
so.
man, because it's hard to watch. And so,
Yeah,
but yeah, man, I
it
think
is.
Auburn has a lot of, I mean, they Peyton. I mean, excuse me, Hugh Freeze keeps saying, he's still building this team. And we have mailbag questions that include Auburn, but my thing is man, I've been down to Auburn. Obviously, you said you have a wife, Auburn alum, Auburn fan favorite.
Yeah.
But you look at Auburn, man, and you just get a vibe around that campus that donors and NIL and people that are bought in for Auburn, man, are not going to watch Hugh Freeze do this for too long. But if you're in the eyes of Nick Saban, who said this on game day 2 weeks ago, he said, you got to give these coaches time to build a program. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, when recruiting was the only way to build a program, when recruiting high school kids was the only way. Now you have NIL, and they did it. They did dip into NIL, and they did have a pretty good recruiting class. So when does Hugh Freeze have to change course and really dive deep and go, is Auburn prepared? Are they ready for big boy football in the SEC?
Yeah. Big time. I agree.
I think it's huge.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think Hugh Freeze is a good coach. Nick Saban's got a point. He is a pretty smart guy.
Yeah.
That you got to give him time. I mean, not everybody can have the immediate success that some other coaches have when they first get hired on. Year one, year two. Some teams inherit better teams. Some coaches inherit better teams than others.
Mm-hmm.
And Auburn was pretty much left with nothing because Brian Harsin just, whoa.
Yeah.
Like nobody wanted to be there. It was such a bad taste, there.
Yeah.
And then they didn't give the job to Cadillac Williams,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I think that kind of sent a few of their better players in different directions too. Not a mass exodus, but some people that were loyal to him that were wanting to play for him. So Hugh had to basically start from scratch, and he's working with the quarterback who obviously doesn't know his system very well. This is year 2 with him, so you would think there would be, he would know a lot more about it. He would be way more comfortable with it. But man, if you watch that game, he just didn't seem comfortable with it at all. Yeah. He did not look like he knew what he was doing running that offense.
Yeah. And Cal is they did what a lot of SEC teams are gonna do. SEC coaches and they're gonna look at, well, what does Auburn do well and what did they not do well? And we're gonna put our money on red. We're gonna put our money on, but we're gonna put our money where we think that they have to win the game. And obviously, you look at what the SEC is going to do this year. They know that they have improved. They have proven at the wide receiver spot. They have improvement in the running back position. They have, depth there. They have, strength there. But they have a quarterback who he has been there a year. But as far as throws and downs, he's only got the experience of half a year because touchdown Robbie is what Robbie Ashford. Touchdown Robbie, Peyton Thorne would get him to the 10. And Robbie Ashford would run him into the end zone. So you don't have that this year. But my thing is where's the I thought defense for the most part looked good. I thought the offense sputtered, when Thorne had to throw it. But overall, like I just think that Hugh Freeze needs to understand that he has. We talked about it in the preview in the preseason. He has 5 home games to start the year. He did not expect to lose to Cal. Some of those home games are now against teams that I look back now and go, hmm, Arkansas better than advertised than we thought in the beginning of the year. Now,
Yeah.
did they drop that game, against who was it they dropped their game against this
Oklahoma
past
State.
weekend? Oklahoma State. Did they drop it? Did they give it away? Yeah, they did. But at the end of the day, Fish, that's a better team. Arkansas is a better team than they were last year. Better coordinator.
Oh,
Patino
100%.
obviously hasn't gone in the right direction. Because there's some games on that schedule, Oklahoma included, before they hit the road against Georgia, that
Yep.
they have to really buckle down and understand they got to win those games at home because it gets much tougher, because we looked at Auburn as an 8-4, 7-5 team, but with the loss to Cal, and if those things arise again with the quarterback stuff, I think you may be looking at a 6-6, and you don't want a losing record because then Hugh Freeze is coaching for his life next year, and you don't want that because I agree with you. I think Hugh Freeze is a great coach, but moving on, another game that caught my eye and it might have caught your eye. Auburn USF. I mean, excuse me, Alabama USF. I watched this game, man, and I'll be honest, man. I'm gonna let you go first. Give me your thoughts about what you thought about Alabama and USF.
Basically a carbon copy of last year, just a different stadium and more sunshine than rain. Up until 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and I've heard people say, like, it was a close game up into the second half, and I want you to know it was 10 minutes and 53 seconds left in the game before Alabama took the lead, or before they pulled away, I'm sorry. They scored 28 points in 10 minutes. You know, USF gave it all they had for three quarters, and then they were just tired. They just ran out of gas. They started to make mental errors. They started to make mistakes. And if they don't do that, who knows what we're talking about. This could be a completely different conversation. Milroe looked like Milroe from the first 2 games last year in the first half. And, you know, he was holding the ball in the pocket too long, just making bad decisions with the ball, man. And they couldn't hold on to the ball to save their lives. I mean, good Lord, how many fumbles did they have in the first half?
Yeah.
I mean, it was nuts.
I think we talked about at the beginning of the year that exactly, Fish, that we talked about was the offensive line for real. It was a spot that it could make Milroe struggle. Were their throws made when needed? Milroe looked uncomfortable. The defense too, I think the defense was exposed a little bit because they played against a spread offense the first game against Western Kentucky. And, you know, when they can pin their ears back and trust that defensive backfield, that's a different story when skill players come into play. But you were making those skill players that we talked about, offensive line, defensive backfield. Those were 2 areas for Alabama that if they didn't get better on or they didn't look out for it, that was going to be areas they struggled on offense and areas they would struggle on defense with. South Florida kept your eyes in a lot of different directions with that. I call it just that. It's like the spread option look thing. And so your eyes are going 3 different places, whether they're gut in the middle, whether they're pitching the outside. They had a pretty elusive quarterback. It's right down the road here from me. But the big thing I thought that was great from Golish was Alex Golish, which he's an incredible coach. Man, I got a feeling USF might lose him. He could very well
outcoach Kalen DeBoer for 30 minutes.
What's that?
He outcoached Kalen DeBoer for 45 minutes. I'm sorry.
I agree. And his pedigree is, you know, he comes from the Josh Heupel, you know, background where he wants to move fast. He's an offensive mind. I thought their defense played really well too. He got the defense. I forget the guy's name, but the old defensive coordinator for Texas in there down at USF. I thought USF looked good, man. I thought USF has a really good shot of doing well in their conference. We might see them again. They looked really good. And I thought they gave Alabama everything they wanted. And, you know, not to preview it too early, but Alabama goes on the road this week against a Wisconsin team who's well coached. I don't know about talent. You know, I don't know if Tyler Van Dyke up at Wisconsin's the real deal. I don't know if Wisconsin's the real deal. I haven't really looked that deep into Wisconsin since Ron Dane played at Wisconsin. We all knew Ron Dane because we all wanted him on you know, football games on, you know, because he's the only running back that was like break tackle wasn't 99 and could still like
you could not tackle that man.
You ran him at fullback, you ran him at tailback, and you know, you just wanted him everywhere. But at the end of the day, they leave Tuscaloosa and they have their first road test up in Wisconsin, and that's not an easy place to play. And so I'm curious to see. Yeah, I'm curious to see how these games translate because then they have an off week, and then it's obviously the game we're going to preview very heavily in the next 2 weeks is Georgia Alabama. But I did think, just overall, I agree with you. I think USF was very well coached. Wait till the mailbag questions. I'm gonna give you a pretty good answer on Alice Golish. But let's preview the third and last game before we preview Georgia Kentucky. But this is one that's gonna kind of zoom in on a game that really exposed some things, but also gets us into our Georgia Kentucky preview. But that is South Carolina at Kentucky this past weekend. And if anybody was right about this game, you won a lot of money if you were betting. I know myself, for one game, Beamer made me look kind of stupid. I thought South Carolina looked extremely well coached. I thought they looked extremely fast on defense, and I thought they were one of the most well put together teams out of the SEC that played they're supposed to play a very competitive game this past week. And South Carolina shocked me. What do you think about South Carolina versus Kentucky?
Dude, who knew Spencer Rattler not being on your team would make such a big difference in your offense? Lenora Sellers
for a
ain't no
freshman,
joke.
Lenora Sellers,
dude, 31-6, right? I mean, I didn't watch a lot of this game because before I knew it, it was over.
Yeah,
like it was. Kentucky had no chance. Looked lifeless. Defense
exposed is the right word.
Big time, man. Bob Stoops might be in trouble if the right person's available at the end of the season.
Yeah. Stoops is between Golish and I think Golish is a prime candidate for that job in Kentucky. Watch out because he recruited that area when he was with Heupel, so it would be a fit. And wait, we'll get to it in our mailbag question, but I think South Carolina. I think the defense was incredible. I think they had a very good pass rush. I think they caused a lot of problems for, in my opinion, a very physical offensive line. At least that was determined it was going to be a physical offensive line. It was bigger. They went out and got some players in NIL in the portal, and this was supposed to be an improved line, obviously with a quarterback coming out of Georgia, Brock Vandagriff. And in my opinion, Kentucky did not look the part of a team that has good potential. So you start to wonder, like, is this? I mentioned this. I wish I could play the clip right now, Fish. You remember this? I told you. I said I get tired of seeing Kentucky in Stoops' name, man, because he always does so little with so much.
You're definitely not a Stoops fan. You have been very clear about that. Every show that we talk about Kentucky, and I'm like, oh well, Kentucky, and you're like, nah, Bob Stoops, no.
I can't believe the talent that he has on that roster right now. And I don't want to say much about this, man, because I am a skeptic when it comes down to, all right, we do play Kentucky this week. So they'll play their brains out this week. So I don't want to say too much, but I will just tell you, man, I thought South Carolina looked really good. I thought Lenora Sellers did enough. The defense looked better for South Carolina than the offense did. Sellers did enough. There was enough. I thought Rocket Sanders looked really good on the ground.
Wow. Yeah.
He looked really good on the ground. It was a different team, man. So, I mean, I will say that for this week, for week 3, I take it back. What I say, Beamer's not on my hot seat anymore. Let's just put it that way. I think Beamer's safe because we have 2 candidates that are now fighting for the number 1 hot seat in the SEC that we'll talk about pretty soon. But let's hop right in, man. Georgia, Kentucky, this Saturday, night game, Kroger Field. We don't know what kind of weather we'll have with this hurricane coming through. Prayers for anyone that was in this path, this hurricane, with any damage, things going on with that, with rain, flooding, things of that nature. I pray that safety is of the utmost importance for you, well before sports. But if we do get some of this weather, right, that tends to enable some of this play this weekend, like a lot of the question is this game change? And we've seen this game change a lot a couple years back when Georgia played Kentucky in Kentucky, and it rained the entire game. This was a low-scoring game. Obviously, Kentucky would love it to be a low-scoring game because if it's a low-scoring game, then it comes down to defense, which I do think out of the 2 right now, the defense might be functioning at a little bit more of a higher level. Not much, but a little bit more of a higher level right now on the offense. But as we hop in, let's look at some key players. I know you're super high on this guy. I'm still super high on this guy. Kirby still thinks the world of him. But I know that Brock has had a pretty rough start, but 2 games, 199 passing yards, 15 for 28. But the stat that really sticks out is sacked 4 times, and that was all in one game. That was all in one game against South Carolina. And he was, let's just put it this way, man, he was running for his life and on his back way more than he was contently being able to throw out the pocket. Do you agree, Fish?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely, man. And he's mobile. Like the kid's got some wheels. Like he's not a tree back there. He's not planted. He's more of a scrambler or a dual threat, I would call him, instead of a pocket passer. I
Yeah.
want him to do well so bad, and I don't know. I mean, if his offensive line is just that bad, did Beamer, and his team and whoever his defensive coordinator is have did they just scheme it that good? I
Yeah.
mean, shoot, South Carolina looks like so far. I know it's only 2 weeks, and this is a little way too early, but they look like a completely different team than they were
Yeah.
last year. Like it's night and day so far. And is it because Kentucky was that bad? Kentucky looked terrible.
Mm-hmm.
They only manufactured 6 points, and the defense couldn't catch a cold. They couldn't stop anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I think it's a good
Rocket
point.
Sanders had a heck of a game.
Yeah. I think it's a good point. I think it's a great point to talk about. Is it really that South Carolina is that much improved? Because this is a South Carolina team that we talked about last week, barely could handle Old Dominion, right?
Yep.
And now they come in against Kentucky, they look inferior. So is Kentucky that bad? Or is South Carolina really make some adjustments coming off of Old Dominion?
Mean, go ahead.
No, I know that like week to week you can make adjustments. Teams can play down to teams and up to teams. So I get that.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put that on the table. It is Old Dominion, and it's hard to get up for Old Dominion sometimes, but you got to, because when you look at the world of, at least back in BCS era and college playoff, the 14 playoff, you had to beat every team handily because you were always under a microscope of how you performed every week. This year, a little bit of grace there, but still, you got to look good. I mean, not everybody can be Notre Dame, and they didn't only look good, but they actually didn't hold on to it. Northern Illinois got the best of them. So I love the comment you made. Is it really? And you can answer this question. I mean, it's kind of a guess. Do you think South Carolina is really just that good, or do you think Kentucky just really didn't show up and just really hasn't performed?
I mean, SEC Nation was there. They had all the hype. They had all the momentum. Home game, TV, big time announcers, every opportunity to do something and make a good impression, look good, wow us, make me look like I know what I'm talking about, when we do these shows, because I'm big on Kentucky, because I'm big on Brock Vandagriff.
Right.
And, I wanted him to get a shot at Georgia, but, he didn't. And apparently I'm glad he didn't now. So far, He looks not awesome, but his offensive line isn't doing him any favors. He kind of looks like Shedeur Sanders out there running for his life, just hoping somebody will get open fast so he can get rid of the ball. I mean, he doesn't have any time in the pocket to look down and progress. Look through his progression. It's bad. I feel bad for him.
I agree. And Kentucky as a whole, man, like I loved this roster. I told you I loved this roster at the beginning of the year. I just said I didn't really like Stoops. I think Stoops has just been a guy that's been riding this wave of expectations have gotten higher. A little bit at a time. They talk about certain nuances, and why would Stoops? And remember now, this is 1 year foregone of when apparently Alabama was interested in Mark Stoops as their next football coach. That's a true statement. That's been fact checked, as they say. So, yikes, right? So, I don't know, man. This is a good roster. I mean, you look at, they do have injuries. They have tons of injuries. And we're coming into a game where they have tons of injuries on already really, harsh performance. I mean, you look at their starting running back is not who they thought would be the starting running back in week 1. Trey Onum is the one that they thought would be there, but he's nursing an injury. But you've seen most of the carries go to Damon Sumo. It's a hard name, man. Bay. 25 carries, 129 yards, 1 TD. But it's the only touchdown by a running back right now. The only touchdown in 2 games by a running back for Kentucky, which is kind of unheard of. We've known this for a long time, Fish, right? Stoops wants to establish the run. Maybe that could be a key element in why that might be something to look for this weekend, especially if we're playing with a wet ball, that they want to get started against Georgia, because we've seen what they did against South Carolina and said, well, they want Vandagriff to throw the ball 20, 30 times a game. And if that's what they're relying on, that's not who Kentucky is. But maybe this year Stoops tried to back out a little bit and go, okay, I'm going to let my offensive coordinator go because he has micromanaged his coordinators for a long, long time. But
Yeah.
maybe he let him go this week. Maybe that's why Stoops is a better coach than we think he is. Maybe he knows how to play to the strengths of what he expects on defense. However, he has a running back that's
6
only
points.
scored. Yeah, there it is. He has a running back
I'm
that's
sorry.
only scored 1 touchdown in 2 games. And by the way, they played a team that they blew out in game 1. They didn't have a rushing touchdown in that entire game. I'm sorry, they did that game because they didn't have one last game.
Yeah.
But you look at defense. I mean, this is not defensive Kentucky. This is not Kentucky defense. I mean, you look at Derek Jackson, really great linebacker, 9 tackles in 2 games. But the Deion Walkers of the world, like this kid is a phenomenal, like, is an elusive breakout, can drop back from the line, can play on the end, can play in the middle. He's just a freak of an athlete. He's registered less than 3 tackles in both games. Very much
Yeah.
not seen. Derek Jackson was expected to be good for Kentucky. And then obviously Pop, James Dumas Johnson has recorded 6 tackles and an interception. So, you look at the 2 guys who came over from Georgia who had expectations, and you start to wonder, was maybe Vandergrift's in a scheme that's not really fitting him right now. That's what Georgia was used to. That's why good quarterbacks, not great quarterbacks. And we can go, this is a whole other show, but I go back and I look at the Aaron Murrays and I look at some of our quarterbacks in the past, the Jake Fromms. I mean, they're not these just standout great. They're more great people and great coaches on the field, and their morale and team players, and they do their part, and that's why they were successful at Georgia. But there's no great standout NFL quarterback. I mean, some people can beg to differ on Matthew Stafford, but I mean, I think Stafford's great, but people have opinions everywhere about Stafford. But when I look at it, it makes me wonder, like, Vandegrift was he going to be a better quarterback because the establishment of the run doesn't put the pressure on him to be the only thing that's scoring points in Kentucky? And for the defense, are they just keeping the players on the field too long and the defense is having to bail them out type thing?
I think that's a lot of what happened Saturday.
I agree. Where do you think, just as we tag the end of this, where do you think the game is won and lost on Saturday with Georgia?
Well, if it's raining and it is a run game, I don't know. Our run defense looked a little skeptical, a little suspect Saturday. Tennessee Tech ran the ball a lot, and they moved the ball. I mean, eventually the drive would stall, but how much better than Tennessee Tech is Kentucky going to be? I bet if it's raining, especially, we're going to get a heavy dose of that running game. So our D line's going to have a lot to do with how that game goes. I feel like definitely.
Been putting a lot of pressure on the D line, man, and then for 2 games they've shown up. I think that has a lot to do with, as well as just our linebackers. Even though they're extremely talented, we had a lot of linebackers. I think that were just I think some of that Fish, and I saw it as well. Some of that was undisciplinedness, and I think Kirby had a good tape on that. I think they look at it and they go, as Tennessee Tech, I can go and maybe try to make that game-breaking play, maybe get my first fumble recovery, INT, things of that nature. But instead of staying in their lane doing their job, I think some of that could have been gone unharmed if they would have just done that. We were not very assignment-oriented for quarters 2, 3, and 4 against Tennessee Tech. But I agree. Wet ball. I think it's whose defensive line is going to come up, and what are we going to do to make those linebackers be able to get their hands on ball carriers, right? So with a dry ball, though, I would say if it is a dry ball on Saturday, I would think it's going to be one, in my opinion. It's going to be one as far as who can establish the run to free up the pass. I think it's going to be balance. It's going to win the game. A lot of people don't have Kentucky scoring a lot of points at all in this game. They don't have a lot of belief in Brock Vandegrift. I would say don't count this Kentucky team out, especially coming off of a subpar performance. This is where they have the opportunity at Kroger Field at night. Nothing would change their season more than to knock Georgia off 7 p.m. Kroger Field, and it would change the dynamic of their season. And if they're playing for their coach, could possibly change the dynamic of his seat, right? And the heat on his seat. Greg Dominique chiming in. What's up, Greg? How are you, man? We need to make the tackle behind the line when in position. I agree with that. That was part of what me and Fish said. It was like discipline in some of that. It was like I think we were fast, but a lot of things you saw second, third, fourth quarter, we kind of overran plays in some areas. We
Yeah,
weren't very disciplined. Our eyes were in places that they shouldn't have been. We weren't playing assignment football, but I think we gave a good tape for Kirby to see that. But you're not going to have that with Kentucky. Kentucky's offense is more of a pro style offense this year. Uh, it's not that kind of. I know you remember those 2 or 3 years. I forget the guy's name. They had a little trickery in the backfield. They ran some wildcat things of that nature. This is more of a pro
oh
style
yeah,
offense this year. Uh,
yeah,
so what could hurt them is if this run game doesn't get established, it could be worse than the South Carolina loss for
yeah.
Kentucky,
It
which
could be.
would definitely microwave that seat really quick.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I definitely agree, Greg. Thanks for joining, by the way. Hop in, man. Any questions, any comments? I'll read them, man. I'll put them right across this board right here. Um, so so let's talk real quick. Injuries, right? So big thing, injuries, possibility. They have to give an injury report now. And from what I understand, if the injury report is not factual, coaches can actually get fined for this now. So these injury reports are very crucial. Number one, I think what brought it about a lot is NIL and then sports betting,
Yeah.
because Kirby will tell you, man, he don't share no news. He doesn't share it. He doesn't think it's part of the game. But obviously now if they make it part of the SEC and part of a thing, he's going to do it. But so the one that was shared this week, the big name on that list that's doubtful was Michael Williams, obviously nursing that ankle sprain. Obviously, this is a little more in depth than we thought. Maybe they look at it and go wet field possibly. Do they want to take a chance with him? Are they just really asking for it? I don't think they're saving him per se. I mean, you don't see that with Kirby, but when you look at that, I don't want anybody to drink the rat poison, but Tuscaloosa and Alabama is 2.5 weeks around the corner. Would you rather have a healthy Michael Williams for that?
Oh
With a
yeah. He's
wet,
got to chase Jalen Milrow around. He's got to chase Milrow around. Sorry.
nice.
So yeah,
What's
he's
up,
going to
Rich
need
man?
that ankle to be 100%, or at
Yeah,
least
I
close
agree,
to it.
man. I agree. What's up, Rich man? How are you, buddy?
What's up, Richie Rich?
You guys won. That's incredible, bro. Was it raining? 10-mile per hour winds. If they're blowing in, man, there's no homers hit. If they're blowing out, man, that people feel like Frank Thomas all over again. Big
Heck
hit
yeah.
though. Big hit though. Jagger Burton, Gerald Mincy. They had enough problems on the offensive line on this past Saturday, Fish, but now they got two offensive linemen doubtful on Kentucky's offensive line for this week. And Maxwell Harrison is probable, which is their best defensive back. We may see him, but is he 100%? I don't know. These injuries on here, they have to be pretty straightforward on these. They can't really. They can get fined up to $25,000 an incident, man. I don't know about you, but I know to these coaches that's like $250. But and most
If
of these
that
universities pay it
25
for them,
maybe.
right? For
Yeah.
$25. But they got to be pretty straightforward. But two offensive linemen on an offensive line that was already struggled handily against South Carolina, and then Maxwell Harrison's an incredible prospect in the defensive backfield for Kentucky.
Dude,
Like,
speaking of offensive line, did you see Jake Bobo Saturday
I did,
when he was running downfield, put his head down, and he's lucky he didn't get targeting
yeah,
because he
I
knocked
did,
that dude. He lowered his head. He hit that dude hard. That dude went flying.
dude. He looked about as crazy as Bobo used to look when he was in a. I never understood Bobo. Bobo thought he could run, man, but we didn't have the most elusive quarterback play back then. When you look at the speed of, the speed of David Green and Bobo and them two combined don't get to Milrose speed on college football. Like, so, yeah, and Bobo, man, yeah. So Bobo Jr., man, I think he thought he was for real on that, and
Oh my god, he
yikes,
must have had
man.
something personal against that guy.
Yeah,
That was
man.
nuts, man. That was
Uh-huh.
he obliterated that cat.
Yeah. Rich Man says, is Vandergriff on the hot seat after this last week? Man, I think after this week, I don't know if you can tag it to Georgia. Depends. It depends on if this game is won in the trenches. Depends on if it's a wet ball, how high the score is. I mean, at the end of the day, like Stoops is going to he's going to play the blame game because his seat's going to get hot, man. Like it's going to get hot regardless of if you lose to Georgia or not. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I think there's some blame game that'll start happening. So if it makes Stoops look better to put Vandergriff under the hot seat, he will. So maybe, yeah. I saw that too. The backup came in, some momentum until he threw that. Yeah, man, that backup, bro, maybe against South Carolina, but that backup, man, he's fast, but he reminds me of like a skinny Milrow. And I don't know if he survives if we hit him one two times the right way.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I think it's gonna be huge. I think it's gonna be a game where, depending on weather, could determine whether. I think it's still a Georgia win, but I think weather wise keeps it close. I think dry air, man. This game gets weird really quick.
They could.
Georgia's offense is. I mean, we saw the return of Trevor Etienne. That's not on our topics tonight, but uh, I really didn't bring it up because I like Etienne. But as Kirby says, we don't really know what Etienne can do, man. I mean, without saying it,
He's
he
got a
said it.
small sample size Saturday.
Yeah, without saying it, he didn't say it, man. But he basically wanted to say is, I'm not betting on what Etienne did against Tennessee Tech as my, I don't know, my measuring stick per se. Maybe against Kentucky with a wet ball. Yeah, now I want to see what you're made of. You're gonna have to foster that load because you got Branson, who I thought had flashes of greatness. I thought you said it either Richmond or you texted me and said, Branson looked completely different this past week. I think he had more confidence this past week. So that was good. Let's hop into Mailbag real quick. dogsdownsouth@gmail.com. Some of these questions are for people that sent these questions in. And I kind of took some of these questions off of local podcasts around that SEC podcast with cousin Shane and them, and as well as Before the Hedges. But first question on the docket tonight: what's going to keep this team from reaching its potential this year? You can't use injuries. You can't use injuries because I think that would keep any team from reaching their potential. But Fish, I'll give you this one first. Like, what do you think is going to keep this team from reaching its potential? Which obviously, for a lot of people, they seem to think this is a national championship team this year.
Well, Carson Beck's inability to throw a long ball. That man's deep ball accuracy is not good, and we could have scored so many more. We could have had a couple extra touchdowns against Clemson and against Tennessee Tech if he doesn't way overthrow his receiver. Then that touchdown he had to Arian Smith against Tennessee Tech, Arian had to stop and wait on it. And if that's a good team, if that's Alabama or Texas, that's an interception or an incompletion.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to get it together. We don't have a big play offense right now, not through the air. We have a mediocre mid-range. His short accuracy, his medium accuracy is untouchable. It's great. I don't understand how he cannot throw a deep ball.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like hilarious if it wasn't so sad and scary because we need those plays. We need those game-changing plays, and if Arian breaks out or Dom Lovett gets out or Colby Young gets open deep over the middle or something like that, he just throws it into the stands. I mean, what good is that doing us? That can save us a game. We might need those down the line. And he's got to work on that. Something's got to happen.
Right. Dude, very good comment. I agree. I didn't really think about that, but as you kind of spoke into that, I agree. I have seen some. I mean, I think there was a play against Tennessee Tech where we caught them off sides, and that was the time where I thought we would see it go, and it wasn't even in the area code of Arian Smith. So very very troubling there. I agree. Maybe we see it more. We talked about it this year. What does balance bring to Georgia's offense? It obviously brings the ability to control the line of scrimmage, control the clock, and keep our defense fresh. But what it also has shown that it can do for our team is create big plays. And I would say, in my opinion, Kirby as a head coach has struggled with big play stuff. I think we've always been good at ground and pound, and I don't know. To me, I couldn't agree with you more. Big plays. It'd be nice to see a couple of wows on Saturday if that ball is not wet.
Exactly.
Richmond says because of that, our O line has to be able to run block. Fish dead on line play. Yeah, I agree, man. Line play is huge. I think we have an incredible offensive line. Man, we should be opening up holes the size of Kentucky, and we are to an extent. I mean, I think we've run the ball effectively, but I haven't seen anything just like I haven't seen a running back just running straight through the middle of the line untouched in a long time. And we have a line that can do that, but maybe when is the breakout? For me, I think the potential is going to be, can the defense continue to keep up this elite play? I think our secondary has not been tested yet at all. So we haven't had those question marks answered yet. And we'll see those maybe. I don't know. I will tell you that there's nowhere to go but up for Kentucky in the area of passing the football. So do we get tested this weekend at Kentucky? We're definitely going to get tested against Jalen Milroe. He throws his best ball deep. I think his best throw is the deep ball.
It is.
So we're going to get tested. But for me, it's I think we're all over the place, but I think we all have three factors. I think when you look at offensive line play, huge. I think inabilities to create big plays and Carson Beck throw the deep ball will definitely hold us back. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like you watch football with me on Saturday, there's not a ton of defenses are much better this year. There's not a lot of those 70-point. I mean, Ole Miss is killing people, man. But Ole Miss is playing JV football teams right now. Like
they're supposed to kill people. Yeah.
It's a joke, man. Come on, Lane. Yeah. This is the best you got, man. Your NIL year, man. I get it. Jackson Dart is leading the Heisman race because he's got 17 touchdowns in 2 games. But I don't know, man. We're gonna have to start making the Heisman race like the BCS. Like maybe it should be voted off of strength of schedule. Who you play? Who'd you throw those 17 touchdowns against?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, are you playing Colorado? Ooh, too early. Okay.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not too early. It's not too early. Man, they didn't improve any. They didn't improve any. Their O-line is still trash, man. They went to Lincoln and got handled.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 28-3 until like halfway through the fourth quarter. That game wasn't close. Not at all. They gave them that touchdown at the end.
This is not a mailbag question, but man, how bad are you bummed that Raiola didn't come to Georgia now?
Not even a little bit.
I'm not either, man. I think the guy wants to be Patty Mahomes. I think he wants to be Mahomes. Like, I don't know, man. Like a little serious weird wants to be Mahomes. Anyways, moving on. Kidding. Here's a key question right here. Would Brock Vandagriff have a better chance of being drafted if he stayed at Georgia? After seeing what you've seen, would he have had a better chance of the mystery of coming off a team like Georgia, who they know? We heard Kirby say it. He said NFL scouts and coaches, they trust Georgia's players because they know what kind of training they have day in and day out, game in, game out.
Yeah. Well, the kind of defense they go up against in practice too. I mean, it's one of the best defenses in the nation every year. So you're going against the best. Iron sharpens iron. Like that's how you get good. But Brock had a chance to beat out Carson Beck. For the job last year. They both had seniority. They both had been there and put in some time. Behind Stetson.
I agree.
So he couldn't beat him out, which I thought he had a really good shot, and I actually thought he would beat out Carson Beck because I didn't really know a lot about Beck, but apparently, I don't know. And then he kind of throws some sketchy passes in the spring games, and when he did get to play, but I still I liked a lot of his tape in high school and some of the stuff I saw of him in practice, that I saw. And I don't know. I hope a lot of this is, just Kentucky's O-line is garbage. And you see Shedeur Sanders can't even do anything with a bad O-line. And that kid can spin it. Like, we know he can spin it. But he's got to have time to spin it, just like Brock needs time to spin it. He hasn't had a lot of that this year.
Yeah. I'm going to, for time's sake, before picks tonight, I'm going to skip to this one. Napier or Stoops, man? Which seat's hotter? I'll go in on this. I think Stoops' seat is hotter than Napier's right now. And I'll tell you why. It's because, in my opinion, Napier is I think Napier has had less of an opportunity to build a roster, and that could still be coming into the mindset of Florida right now. Has he had enough time? Whereas Stoops has had plenty of years at Kentucky and plenty of players and plenty of NIL money and plenty of, you name it, offensive coordinators. I mean, he's burnt through offensive coordinators. I think Stoops now kind of takes my number one spot in he's the hottest seat in the SEC.
I'll do you one better. I think they're both gone at the end of the year. or by the end of the season, or right after the end of the season. I think both of them are gone, unless they can turn it around. Napier has resorted to attacking his fans, talking about rural people, Florida fans in rural Florida, sitting in their mom's basement, typing their feelings or whatever he said. I mean, if you're doing that, where are you at mentally? You're gone. Like, he's already gone. He's checked out.
Yeah.
Like, I get that it's frustration, but they have a right to be mad. Like, he wasn't brought there to be middle of the road, bottom half of the SEC, but that's the only place they've lived since he got there. And I get Mullen didn't recruit. Mullen left him a crap show, much like Hugh Freeze inherited at Auburn.
Right.
By the time Cadillac left and everybody left with him, there wasn't a lot left for Hugh Freeze, just like Napier. But Napier was supposed to be a really, really awesome recruiter, which is one of the big reasons they, hired him.
Yeah.
But I heard today that they've already got his buyout money raised. Mike Griffith on Dog Nation was talking about
Napier?
that on Feinbaum today. Yeah,
Napier?
yeah. They've already got his buyout money.
I think it's just a matter of I think it's a matter of time as well.
Yeah.
The reason I say Stoops is because he's had it. I mean, you could be dead on. Maybe I'm just going off of it will change courses really quickly if Georgia beats them pretty bad. If there's 2 beatdowns and Kentucky still has, they still have, I think Tennessee. I don't have their schedule handy, but I think they still have Tennessee on deck. I think they still have Alabama on deck. Let me pull this schedule real quick.
Where does Florida play Tennessee? I want to know
that. Man, pull this schedule right now. This is wild, bro. So Tennessee, so basically Kentucky still has Ole Miss on their schedule in Oxford. They got Vandy right now it's like a playoff team. No offense. You got Florida and Gainesville, you got Tennessee and Knoxville, and you got Texas and Austin. I don't know, Fish. Like, man, for me, that schedule is tough, man, especially when you drop one to South Carolina. I mean, you dropped one to South Carolina, bro. Like, yikes.
And not just dropped it, dude. 25 points.
Yeah.
25 points.
It could get weird for both of them, man, but I agree with you. Maybe we'll split that in the middle. Both of them, I think, possibly get the curtain call. But we'll see. Let's pick them, man. Let's pick them. We got about 10, 12 minutes left in the show tonight. But let's get our picks in. Let's start out in the SEC. We're not going to pick all the SEC games because I think we can look at Kent State. Kent State's one of the worst teams in college football right now. The biggest thing might be the spread at the Tennessee game. But let's do this. Let's look at New Mexico going to Auburn, 7:30 p.m. ESPN2. Who you got, man? ESPN2, New Mexico, Auburn. Who you got, Fish?
I got Auburn. New Mexico's best player went to Vandy this year, and Vandy has righted the ship, so to speak. Anchor down apparently. Virginia Tech's not great, but oh my God, Vanderbilt has looked really, 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 really good so far in the 2 games they played so far. But anyway, give me Auburn. Give me Auburn by 14.
Bounce back game. I agree, man. Spread on that game is, man, you got Auburn. They're giving Auburn 22 at home. I don't know, man. Give me Auburn, but I don't know if they cover that, man, because the offense, the offense, you got to show me that to cover that. So I'll take Auburn too. Exactly. Night game, Jordan Hare. A little bit pissed off from Cal. Maybe they need to be a little bit pissed off, but
I hope they are.
Yeah, man. Texas A&M goes into Florida, 3:30 ABC. Big game here. You got Napier. This is one of the games you got circled because you got you got A&M new coach coming into the swamp. Can Elko and the boys get more done in the SEC than Napier's gotten done? And the big thing in this one is I'm hearing no DJ Lagway, which I know they were going against Sanford, but DJ Lagway showed some spunk, in that team this past Saturday. But I'm hearing Graham Mertz is the call. Who you got, man? 3:30.
The only thing Florida's got going for them in this game is the swamp. But we'll also find out a lot about Texas A&M and Mike Elko, and Mike Elko this weekend. Also, he's going to have his team ready to go. Um, this will be a close game. Give me A&M 24-17.
Yeah. My thing is the inability, in my opinion. Connor Wigman's got to get started quick. That's one thing that A&M missed against Notre Dame. But are we really seeing? Okay, here's the thing. And this is my thought behind it. I was on the A&M wagon, and I'm going to stay on the A&M wagon with this. But I'm going to say this: Wigman has to get started quick because we're seeing that Notre Dame was not as good as I think advertised per se. But I'm going to tell you this: with Notre Dame not being as good, it makes A&M's loss look even worse. But I do
Yeah.
think Florida still can't do that against if Connor Wigman gets going. I don't think Florida can establish the run. I don't know if they can have consistency with Graham Mertz. I think Mertz is more of a guy who's a game manager. I think if Lagway was in there, I might pick Florida. I'll be honest with you. If Lagway was in there, I'd pick Florida. Napier might be gone by halftime Saturday if they got the cash. 5 interceptions. Give me the points. Wow. Crazy. I got Florida. I'm sorry. I got Texas A&M in this one, and it's only if Connor Wigman gets going early, and only because DJ Lagway is not going to be playing in this game unless Mertz can't get it going. Let's head over to Alabama. Heads into Wisconsin. Alabama 16-point favorites in Camp Randall against the Wisconsin team. They're away from Tuscaloosa. It's on Fox. This is the one that's tricky, man. This Fox Network thing, man. This big, what is it? Big something.
Big noon.
Big noon kickoff.
Big noon.
Get the SEC coming to big noon. They're going to be hyping up Wisconsin. You got an SEC team coming into Wisconsin. I don't know if big noon kickoff might be there. They probably are. I'm just guessing.
Yeah,
they're
there.
That. I don't.
It's their game.
Big noon.
That's why game day's not there.
Gotcha. So Alabama 16-point favorites. Who you got?
Give me Bama. But I don't know a lot about Wisconsin, but I know that's a road game. We're going to find out a lot about both these teams Saturday.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about Big Ten very much, but Wisconsin doesn't seem like as scary or as, I don't know, as good as they usually are, as good as they normally are. I mean, they're not as intimidating. Like I haven't heard a lot about them, and usually they get talked about every offseason a lot. They're usually ranked preseason, something. At least in the top 20 and 25. But Bama, I don't know, is going to be trying to make a point, I think, after last week, that it wasn't that first part of the game was a fluke. And I think they're going to come out slinging it. And I think Milroe's going to throw a couple of touchdowns. I think it's going to be close, but I think Bama gets it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Bama wins this. But I would tell you this, look for this game to be weird if Alabama cannot come out and solidify balance. Yeah. That's one key thing that I think Luke Fickell's, if you go back to the days of Luke Fickell, he's been known to, he's a defensive mind at heart. If you can't come out and show balance and you show him your hand that you can't establish the run or you're just going to pin your ears back and understand that Milroe's going to win the game for you, which he can. I mean, I think he can beat you with his arm and his legs, but that will be the difference maker. And if this game is out of control and if they cover that spread, I don't see them covering that 16. I give Bama like 7 or 6 or 7 or 9 or something like that. Maybe like a touchdown and a safety type thing or 3 field goals. I don't know, but I think Bama wins. I think closer than people expect. This is the first week away from Tuscaloosa. So this is going to be a challenge for them, traveling, things of that nature. So give me Bama too. But yeah, noon game.
Yeah. Well, local 11. Local 11.
True. Let's move it on. Big game in SEC Network 1245. Missouri, Boston College. Missouri's first, I would say, test on their schedule that wasn't. I don't think anybody saw a test coming from Boston College. But Bill O'Brien goes into FSU and into Tallahassee and beats FSU. And all of a sudden, Boston College is on the map. They got a quarterback. They got the run game going. They got some solid defense going against maybe a good Florida State team on paper. Maybe they're not as good. in person. I haven't seen him really great in person, but this is a little bit bigger of a test than they saw on paper, 6 months ago. So 12:45 game, early start for this 11:45 game for Missouri fans. So who you got, Fish?
Yep. Give me Missouri by a couple of touchdowns. I don't have a lot of faith in Florida State. I don't think Florida State's that good at all. I think they lost way too much. They didn't replenish any of it. I think they were counting on a few things, a few players to head their way, and it didn't really pan out like that. So I think they're just a shell of who they were last year. So I think Boston College got them, and that's why. I think that's exactly why they were able to pull that win, especially on the road in Tallahassee. So yeah, Missouri by 14.
Yeah, give me Missouri, and I think Missouri allows some points though. I think they're going to allow some points, and I think it's going to be a little bit more of a high-scoring game than you think. But I will
Boston
tell
College
you,
got a good running back.
I agree. But I will tell you, if Missouri has a good defensive show, and this is a good Boston College offense, and they have a really great offensive mind as their head coach. If Missouri gives up some points here, which I thoroughly think could happen, that's understandable. But the key you got to understand is if Missouri can hold Boston College to minimal points, then we need to worry more about Missouri being for real, because that was the question mark this year. Are they going to reload on defense, and can they play defensive well enough to where if they put 28, 35 points up in the SEC, can they win those games? We're going to see that on Saturday. I think if you look at Boston College and you play really solid against a good offensive mind, I think you have a lot to go off of. So give me Missouri, but give me I don't think they're going to hold this offense down. So give me a little more of a high scoring game. Give me Missouri and give me 10 points. And I think the spread's 16.
Yeah, it'll definitely be because it'll come down to athletes and who's got who. I think Bill O'Brien is probably a way better coach.
Yeah.
Than what's his name, Drinkowitz.
Yeah.
I honestly believe that. And I think it'll just come down to like Bill O'Brien will score. Like you're right, they'll score. They're going to get theirs, but Missouri's just going to outlast them. I think it might be close in the first half. They won't start to pull away until the second half.
Right. All right, real quick, a little more lightning speed. So here's one. I want to pick this one. Vanderbilt goes to Georgia State, 7:00, ESPN Plus. I think Vandy needs some national television love, but man, Vanderbilt has the opportunity to start the year out 3-0, man, against a Georgia State team. Who you got, man? Vandy, Georgia State?
Give me Vandy by 17. The Fighting Del McGee's are going to give it all they got, but I think Vandy's on the hot streak.
Pavia. Let me go back real quick. Rich Man just said Rich Man's got Wisconsin, man. I don't think that's a bad pick, man. It's all going to depend on how the cards line up. It really is. Wisconsin would really like to get you in a ground and pound, tight end, beat you up.
They've always got a good offensive line.
Yeah. So it just depends. If Alabama plays Wisconsin's game, yeah, man, definitely that's what they want. It's kind of like the Georgia-Kentucky game if it rains. That game's closer than expected because it's going to be in the rain. But when you look at if you can't put your narrative on it and you can't let Milroe go out and do what he likes to do, then yeah, it could be closer than expected. And you're adding that they're playing in Camp Randall and SEC team in Camp Randall, a game that means something for Luke Fickell. And this team's in a bigger conference. It'll show a lot about how they can possibly do in the Big Ten this year. So huge game for Wisconsin. They're going to be up. They're going to be ready. I agree, Fish. Give me Vanderbilt. First 3-0 start in the history for Clark Lay and the boys. It might not be in the history, but I can tell you in the history of me following Vanderbilt. Is Diego Pavia real? I don't know, man. This is not where his schedule gets real. I think I like Georgia State, but I think they're behind in recruiting and behind in talent.
Exactly.
And
that's all it is.
I think that's where they're at right now. Let's sidetrack a little bit, just a little bit, right? And let's look at this game going on over there. Notre Dame, Purdue. Why are we picking this game, Fish? Because Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois last week, man. And so I figured Purdue 1-0 at home, 3:30 CBS against the ranked 18. I mean, the reason why you preview this game, man, is can they go into Purdue and get a win coming off of obviously Freeman? I mean, like you look at hot seats in the SEC, But does Freeman start to kind of heat his seat up at Notre Dame? If that seat starts to hit the warmer in the microwave, right? Who you got? Notre Dame, Purdue, man.
I think there's blood in the water. I think Purdue's gonna come in guns blazing, throwing everything they have at them. They're not going to back down. I don't know a lot about Purdue, but I know they always seem to be one of those teams that plays up to their talent, up to the competition level. They might not always play that same game, but when it matters the most, they do play that game.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, you're right. That hot seat could be heating up. Give me the upset and Purdue by 3.
Yeah. I totally agree, man. I totally agree. A couple more games real quick on that one particularly, though. I got Purdue, man. I got Purdue. I think there's blood in the water. I think Freeman, I think you got to go on the road. I think you got to gather yourself, get your crap together, and figure out life in this one. And it's going to talk a lot about what kind of coach Freeman is in this one. So, as Rich Man would say, I'm upset looking right here. I think Purdue's going to handle it, and news on Monday morning is going to be what's going on in South Bend. Who's next? Who's the next coach in South Bend? Because I believe the biggest news right now, and the biggest talking point right now, is around the entire football league. Is number one, and we don't have time to get into this, but number one, Deion Sanders. Who is he, and what is their team chemistry, and what are they doing as a team right now? Number two, it's Florida, and then Stoops has quickly jumped on the scene. So I think for Sanders, Stoops, and Napier, they would really encourage some enjoyment for maybe Freeman to start taking some of the load off and spotlight off of them a little bit. Yeah. And if he loses this game in Purdue, and Purdue's no easy place to play, I think it could be detrimental. 3 more games on the agenda. Friday night game, Arizona goes into K-State, Fox, 8:00 Friday night game tomorrow night. Arizona ranked 20th, K-State 14th. Mr. Jed Fish in Arizona. Who you got in this game, Fish, and why?
Give me Arizona. Simply because I watched that K-State game last week, and it was Tulane. And Tulane's not terrible, but K-State underperformed big time. They did the whole thing on game day where they had their quarterback running around the field with his Thor-like hair just floating all over the place, and he was just running around talking to them, just not a care in the world. And I was like, wow, this guy must be good. I know he was okay, but I didn't know he was that good.
Yeah.
But then he came out and didn't really impress me a whole lot,
Yeah.
K-State had to fight that game, and that was Tulane. And I don't know much about Tulane, like I said, but I feel like K-State should have won by more than they did.
Yeah.
So I know Zona, that quarterback they got, he was the truth last year. And he's having a good year so far this year too. So that's why I'm taking Arizona.
Yeah. For me, I agree with you. It's 3 syllables. Fafita, the quarterback from Arizona, is phenomenal. I think that combination of him and McMillan, I think McMillan's the best wide receiver in the country right now, to be honest with you. Not stats-wise right now. Obviously, those go to the Ole Miss receivers because, I don't know, you put that together.
That's who they are. That's who they are.
So, that's who they are, and that's who they haven't played. But I like Arizona in this one. K-State's actually going in 7-point favorites. Spread's low, man, 60.5. If you're a betting guy, man, you're betting. I don't know, man. I'm not your bookie, but take the over. I like the over in that one. 2 more games. One, obviously, game day is at South Carolina. It was supposed to be at Kentucky. Thank you to Kentucky for blowing that against South Carolina. Game day would have been in Lexington, but instead it's in South Carolina. Sandman will be on display. William Bryce. It is a noon kickoff on ABC. South Carolina, LSU. Who do you got, Fish, and why?
Give me South Carolina. And you said it, Sandstorm. That song is going to be played so much, so loud. I don't know if you remember, Georgia went in there ranked like top 10 one year, and we were supposed to blow the doors off of them. And that was the first time I'd ever heard Sandstorm in that stadium. But by the end of the game, I hated that song. It was worse than Rocky Top. That place, that Williams Bryce is going to be crazy. is going to be
Yeah.
nuts. Game day hasn't been there in so long. I don't know how long it's been, but I know it's been at least 4 or 5 years. So, because they haven't been, there are no games there. They're always unranked. They're always, it's always a ranked team versus an unranked team.
Yeah. The
So, and
Gamecocks, man.
LSU, I'm not impressed with Brian Kelly. I think the defense has gotten better. I think Harold Perkins is the only bright spot about the whole team, except for that receiver they have, number 2. I don't know his name, but I know his number is 2. And he looked good against USC. That's going to be Nessmeyer's favorite target all year. I guarantee it. But give me South Carolina and the upset.
Yeah. If you gave me Sandman William Bryce game day at 7:00 in the evening, I'd take South Carolina. But you give me noon kickoff, Beamer's in a spot this week in practice where I don't know who he's ever coached from, and that's from well, people don't believe in this team, but we believe in this team, and these coaches believe in this team, and I get it, man. You believe in this team, but at the end of the day, this team is. We're going to find out if Kentucky was that bad or South Carolina was that good against LSU, and obviously we'll find out against Georgia if Kentucky was that bad or that good. But yeah, if it's a 7:00 game, Sandman, William Bryce game day, Corso, McAfee. No, but it's noon, man, and I got to go LSU on this one. I think Beamer becomes Beamer again after this game. I think his Beamer-esque things show up. I think he wets the bed. This is a lot of pressure, man. He's going to be doing some interviews on game day. They got cameras in there all week. Beamer hasn't seen national attention. I mean, that guy grew 2 inches this week in stature just because of all this hype, dude. So I don't know, man. Beamer, I don't think can handle the hype. Cousin Shane from that SEC podcast, speaking of Cox choke from Richmond, Cousin Shane is going down there to visit, and he's doing show ups around game day, and he's calling it his that SEC podcast cockwalk. So yeah, man. So he's going to be down there because of the fact that he's apologizing for giving Napier so much crap at the beginning of the year, and he's going around telling people and telling fans from South Carolina that he was wrong. I think it's too much hype for Beamer and the boys, man. Lenora Sellers, young quarterback. I like his potential. Young team. Rocket Sanders, I think LSU will do good against the run. LSU wins this. Close game, but I think LSU wins. In the last game tonight, Georgia, Kentucky, Lexington, 7:00. Kroger Field will be rocking. I mean, they have a lot. Anybody, like we said at the beginning of the year, everybody's going to get up for Georgia, right? This is a game that could, if you wanted any game after that loss, you either want 2 games. One, you want a game against an opponent that you can blow out, maybe a Tennessee Tech or somebody like that, or you want a big game versus a Georgia because you can kind of hey, we got a lot to play for still, right? We don't have time to cry about it because we have Georgia next, right? So I know we can talk about, is the ball going to be wet, what's going to go on, things of that nature, but I'm just going to kind of call this one as I think it, and I'll let you get the last pick of it. But I think in this game particularly, we talked about where it's going to be won. I think Georgia I think it's going to be one up front, but I think the difference in up front is the fact that I can't see this this Kentucky offensive line getting any better from an abysmal showing at South Carolina, and they're down 2 of those starters. I think this is a better defensive line than you saw at South Carolina, a better group of linebackers, a better defense. And South Carolina had Vandegrift on the run, man. I think they're gonna create misery for that offensive line. And so give me Georgia big. I think maybe Kentucky does score this week, just because I think maybe you might see Georgia come out a little tight, depending on weather. First real road game. Atlanta was more of a home game, in my opinion. So first real road game, Kroger Field, weather, night, there's hype.
Yeah.
Freshmen are going to be freshmen that are playing on that team. So they may score. But I think Georgia wins this game big. Who you got, Fish?
Oh, of course I got Georgia, but by how much? It depends on the weather. Like you said, the weather is going to be a factor because there's a hurricane moving over, the inland United States right now. So
yeah.
It's going to be a tight game. If it's wet, it's going to be like 21-6, 21-7. If they get a touchdown, maybe a couple field goals. I don't know. But Georgia won't score a lot. not because they can't, just because Kirby's not going to be ultra aggressive if we don't have to be. You know, if we're not playing from behind, if we keep the lead the whole game, we stay up by 14 or 17 the whole time. Kirby's not one to risk stuff. He's not trying to make Sports Center top 10. He's not, you know, trying to be fancy. He's just trying to win, because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So, you know, but if it's hot, if it's humid, muggy, but it's dry, you know, Beck goes out there, throws for 300, we score 35, we give up maybe 10.
Yeah.
So it's just a question about how much.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I mean, I think it's a win. I think I agree with Kirby. He doesn't say, and he says it to keep it even kill it, but he's also very truthful. He knows that Kentucky always plays us very hard in Lexington. So it's going to be a good game. From a perspective of to see where we're at as a team going into a bye week, and maybe to get healthy, not looking towards Alabama, obviously. I know Kirby's not. Kirby doesn't do that.
No.
I mean, he'll use the bye week to get better, but you know, I think we've also, not to go too far in this, but we don't typically use bye weeks to have an extra study at teams. We start looking at things like Alabama, but he'll use that week to get better as a team. And we'll work on us that week, right? But I think it'll give us a measuring stick going into what some would say is the biggest gauntlet of our season, right there in the middle, where you look at us going to Tuscaloosa, coming back home, playing Auburn, Mississippi State before we go on the road against Texas. So definitely a measuring stick here. I look to see Michael Williams is not good news, but if we were healthier, obviously Rod Robinson not back yet, but if we were healthier in the area of the defensive line, that would definitely be a plus for us. But I agree with you. Rich Man's got 35-6. What's your score prediction, Fish?
35. I'll say 35-10, but 35-6 sounds good too.
Yeah, I called a touchdown in there. It could be like I said touchdown, man, but you know, maybe touchdown. I got 10, maybe. I don't. 10's pushing it, man. 10's pushing it. I could see 3 field goals, maybe 9, something like that.
No, Kirby throws Vandegrift a bone and he gets him a touchdown.
Yeah, maybe. Give me. I will tell you this. Give me a little less points. Give me like the 29, 28. I'm sorry, 28, 31 points, maybe 31-ish. I take that touchdown back. Give me 31-6, 31-9, something like that. I think we're all in the same ballpark. We think 6 or 9 or 6 and 10 is the ratio. So yeah, man. Hey, another great night. Man, we packed a lot of stuff into a little time. Very good. Love the outlook on a lot of things we talked about with around the SEC. I love what we talked about improvements that we could see for us to be a championship team at the end of the year. Fish, you said a really key thing just about something to look for this week. Look at the offensive line play. Look at their run game can establish big plays. And look at, we used to create some turnovers, right? We did that against Clemson, and that helped us a lot. Creating some turnovers will be definitely helpful. That's one thing is, you know, defensive scoring, huge in the SEC. We've shown time and time again, defenses that are good are going to help you get your team a lot farther in the SEC, but defenses that can score on defense are elite teams that can probably get you to a championship and beyond. So as for myself, Adam Fisher, make sure and go follow us, man. Facebook, Dogs Down South, YouTube, make sure you go follow and like. I will tell you that a little bit of news, Apple Podcast got to the 250th listen to the show, which might not seem a lot for a little old show that's only been going for a year, but 250 listens on Apple Podcasts and streams. That's awesome. Thanks for the support.
Yes.
We're getting there. Appreciate it. So go follow, like us on YouTube. We're on Twitter. We are on X. X is Twitter. My bad. Instagram.
There you go.
Go like and follow us on that. Let's have a great weekend of college football. You enjoy time with family, friends. Hopefully it's good weather so we can really see some great games. We look forward to being back here next week for a bye week where we start to preview a little bit of Alabama. But first off, it's Kentucky. So you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy watching football. And as always, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.